Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Time of My Life, the channel that is all about intentional and abundant living. I'm Deandra, and today is a very personal conversation that is near and dear to me. It's very intimate because I was invited to speak to a group of young ladies that are graduating. It's actually their closing exercise for a club that is affiliated with the Zonta International. And yeah, I was invited to speak to them on the topic Give to Gain. And let me just start by saying that I was so humbled, when I was asked by the leader to speak, because I'm like, me? Really? So, it was humble. It was a humbling experience, because now, people are starting to look to me, for advice. They're starting to look to me, as a role model. And I say that because, it's happening a lot now. This is the second time in a matter of weeks that I've been asked to just impart knowledge. And then it's also the awakening too that says, Deandra, are you officially the auntie? Are you officially the auntie? Or have you reached that stage of life where you're a mom? Yes, ma'am. So it's just an interesting take, but I am completely humbled. I'm grateful, and I'm blessed to be able to impart knowledge, inspire, empower, educate has been, my life's work. As you guys know, I am an educator by profession. So yeah, today is very personal to me. It's intimate. As I was preparing my notes for the speech, I just had a flood of emotions, and it started to make me think, what would I tell, my 17-year-old self, my 18-year-old self? What are some of the things, looking back in hindsight, that, I would tell my younger self? So that is what this video is inspired by today. This video is inspired by what I would tell my younger self. So flow with me, sit with me for the next couple minutes, and I want you to share in the comments, at the end, any that you may add, what you would tell your younger self, or if there was anything that you agreed with, or anything that may have resonated with you. So here goes. I wrote down my notes. You know how I am. I can rabble. So I definitely wrote down my notes so I could stay in the flow of things. So if you see me looking down, you know what I'm doing. All right. So it is my sincere hope that you find value and jewels that I'm about to share today. And I also want to say, guys, get a notebook, right? Get a notebook. Don't use your brain as a filing cabinet. So if there's anything that resonates with you, feel free to, write it down so that you could be able to easily make reference to it. Because we know that writing down things helps things to register. So enough of me going on and on. Let's get into it. So the first thing I would tell my younger self is to define who you are very, very early on. And I know, as a young woman coming up, that sounds easier said than done, because, different variables, different influences, shape who we are. But as much as you can, you have to define who you are as a young woman. You have to define your self-identity, and that has a lot to do with having your goals, having standards, deciding the woman that you want to be. What are your value systems? What are your core values? As a young woman, you really have to know early on what you will accept and what is unacceptable for you. So don't just finish high school and drift into life. Be intentional about discovering who you are, understanding your personality. Like I said earlier, setting boundaries, all right? Not losing yourself to peer pressure, all right? Don't lose yourself just allowing life to happen to you, because it is such a crucial stage in your life when, you are in the last year of school, getting ready to go out into the world. And so I would say, if you don't define yourself early, you would spend years trying to find yourself later, and I would also say to that young woman to surround yourself with positive people And I know that sounds so cliche, but when we are young people, we are heavily influenced by media, one, but definitely by the circle that we put ourselves in. So as much as you can, put yourself with people who are going somewhere in life, and you're going to know, the people that are gossiping, the mean girls, the people that are just into negativity. You would want to stay away from them, because I guarantee you that, it's not going to end well. And then on to number 2, you need to invest in your mind. Your mind will shape your entire life. So I would say to the young woman, learn high value skills. Be intentional about what you think, seek knowledge. Seek knowledge, seek things that is going to add value to your life. Time is your greatest asset as a young woman, all right? If you start something at 18 and you stay consistent, by the time as you are 28, you have equity, right? You have this thing that compounds over time. And so time is your greatest asset. So please use it wisely, all right? Become very efficient in communicating, all right, and positioning yourself for success, because the way you think determines how far you would go. And number 3, financial literacy. That is a big one. Money answers all things, like the good book says, all things, not some things. So as a young woman, you need to get savvy on how to manage your money. That is very, very important. So after you would have invested in your mind, you're probably in college. You are, if you're not, in college, you have a high value skill. After you would have acquired those things, you have to have good financial literacy. All right. And this is a topic that is very near and dear to me, because I feel like in the Black community especially, we don't talk about money. I think we think that money is a taboo thing to speak of. And it was only because I had my mother, the guidance of my mother, and she would have positioned us through doing that. I learned a lot about financial literacy very, very early on. So this topic is something that I would sit down with a younger woman and say, listen, get your notebook, let's go, because you're going to need these nuggets. And so I would say, firstly, money is a tool, and the way you use it determines the life you experience. So number 1, avoid bad debt. Number 1, avoid bad debt. And I know, it's cliche. They say, oh, avoid bad debt, avoid bad debt. But what does that mean? What does bad debt mean? Firstly, you want to stay away from the credit cards. All right. If you don't know how to use a credit card, as soon as you get a job, I know when I started to work, as soon as we got our letters to be employed, there were, the auto sales people right there. As soon as you got your letter, they wanted to get you locked into getting a brand new car, or like getting a credit card and those sort of things. These facilities target young people, and it's not because you necessarily need what they offer, but they do it because they know that you're young and gullible. All right, so they want to lock you in. And so you want to avoid things that you have no knowledge about. And if you don't know about something, seek knowledge. The Bible says that our people perish because of lack of knowledge. And that I find that to be true in so many instances, especially as you when you are a young person, coming into your own, you think you know everything, but in a lot of cases, you really know nothing. All right. And so I would say to avoid bad debt, firstly. And secondly, I would tell the young woman to buy property as soon as you can. Buy property as soon as you can. So there's good debt, there's bad debt. That's the credit cards that, the interest is going to be extremely high, and if you don't know how to use it with paying your bills on time and that sort of thing, you could find yourself down a very bad rabbit hole. But if you want to invest in something, definitely go with property. And the younger you get property, the better it is for you. I often say that when you've already, finished college, give yourself around 21. The immediate thing to do, I would say to a young person, is to get yourself a piece of property. And I would say to get that piece of property debt-free. Now, I know how that sounds. Debt-free, I can't pay $100. Where am I going to get $100,000 from to be able to get a piece of property? But I'm not talking about a $100,000 property. I'm talking about a property that you would have saved for, let's say for about 2 or 3 years. Use ASUS to your advantage to buy a piece of property, especially if you live in the Bahamas. You don't have to get your property from necessarily Nassau. The Bahamas is an international hotspot, a destination that everybody wants to come and enjoy what the Bahamas has to offer, and we're getting more into ecotourism. And so our family islands are wide open, where you can go and build yourself a nice cottage or, a duplex or whatever have you, and get yourself, an income. And, I would have had this conversation a lot of times with people that I know. I mean, professionals and some of them just don't see, the vision. But I would say to a 17-year-old, listen, have property on your mind when you are looking to make your first big purchase. I know you need your car. You don't have to go ahead and get a brand new car, again, using the ASU to get yourself a transportation. You need that. But your next step after your car, not a bank-owned car, because once you lock yourself into that 7 years, and you're gonna need your salary-free government employees. You're gonna need your salary-free to be able to do what you want to do in terms of investing in your assets. And, maybe I'll do another video with debt service ratio and amortization and all that kind of stuff as it relates to money and preparing yourself for a big real estate development. But I don't want to run on too much about that. I would say that, yes, buy yourself a piece of property. So if you spend $20,000 on a property, let's just say I'm in Nassau, Bahamas. I'm going to use the Bahamas as an example. Let's just say you're a young person, you're 21, you just came out of school. I would say to look for, one of the islands that, is a tourist hotspot, like Eleuthera, the Abacos, Exuma, where you still have properties that are about $20,000. So I would say to invest in one of those and let it sit, right? Property increases in value every single year from 3% on the low end to 10%, if it's a really hot spot and an area that, is growing fairly quickly, especially somewhere that has like a major resort or something like that. So you could buy a property for $20,000 this year, and on average, property value goes up about 5% every year on average in the Bahamas. So let's just say next year, so let's just say you bought it this year, 2026, and 2027, that's going to be 21,000. So the value would have appreciated. All right. And so in a 10-year span, you're going to get something around at 5%, maybe 32,570 something thereabout. And so if it's a really, really awesome area that is, growing rapidly, you could actually double that property in value. And so that gives you excellent equity if you want to go ahead and build on the property, or even if you want to sell it. That's something that grows with you. It grows over time. And so I would tell my younger self, come hell or high water, get yourself a piece of property in cash. Leave your salary free for if you want to use your salary to develop that land. All right. And if you were to go and invest in buying your first property, if you don't want to go, the building route, buy a multi-family property or like a duplex property so that you are able to not just have a place to stay, but you also have something to help you with your mortgage if you do decide to go that route. A lot of young people, go ahead and they go and get themselves, a house, and if you can, and if it's the choice between a house and, a nothing, of course, get the house. But if you have a choice between getting a house and a duplex, go for the duplex. I'm gonna tell you, like my grandmother used to say, hard times will come. And having that help is gonna be something that you will never regret, that you have that property, that income producing property, even if it's $1,000. When hard times come, when COVID came, persons lost their home and they didn't have their job. So if you have that duplex, you're always able to get income from the other side. So if you have a choice, if you're gonna go the mortgage route and you have a choice between a home and an income producing property, go with the income producing property, because life happens, hard times will come, and when they do, you want to have income, not just expenses, all right? And so I also would say to the young woman, get comfortable with touching big money. Remember I talked about the ASU? Get comfortable touching big money. And when I talk about big money, I'm not talking about just your paycheck, right? Some people get stuck in the paycheck to paycheck thing. Minimum wage in the Bahamas is what, $260? I don't want that for my young women. And that's why I talked earlier about having high quality skills, having high quality skills, so you're able to have that leverage, you know what I mean, to be able to actually be paid what you're worth. And also, I don't know if I alluded to it earlier, but you need to have multiple streams of income. Gone are the days when we just depend on our salaries. You have to have multiple streams of income if you are a young woman that's just coming up in the world. Please, if you have a degree, get good at selling, get good at sales. Sales is universal, all right? Learn how to sell. There are countless of videos on YouTube where you could be self-taught on anything. So the Bible says seven streams of income. And I would say, I would also endorse that. Go for as much streams of income as you can. Find something to do with your hands, right? Get good at selling, have your degree or have your day job, but make sure that you get comfortable touching big money. Don't allow anyone to woo you with $200. Believe it or not, a lot of women get caught up in the cycle, even as it relates to getting involved with partners and getting locked in when they really didn't want to, but they became trapped because they were not self-sufficient. They were not able to touch money on their own. And so any little carrot that is dangled in the front of them, they kind of run with, because they were not comfortable, touching big money. And when I say big money, I'm talking about $10,000 being a normal thing to you, right? Having that amount of money in your account. I know a lot of persons say that there was a study that was worldwide that the average person does not have $1,000 in their bank account. I don't want that to be my young women, all right? Get comfortable with touching big money, and don't be afraid of it. Don't think small. Put yourself in positions where you are managing and moving money with intention. All right, like I talked earlier about the ASU. Normalize going in an ASU that the hand is $10,000. Normalize that. And you can start off small first. You could start off with like $5,000, that may even run for the entire year, right? Where you throw, $500 a month or $1,000 a month, and it runs the whole year. Do that. Sacrifice. Do it. It's going to do something to your brain chemistry. Trust me. All right? Don't get caught up in the debt trap. Just because everyone is borrowing money and taking the loans out to take vacations and all these kind of things like that, let's not get caught up in the modern day slavery. Don't use loans to go on the vacation, to buy the clothes, to do all the things that, is gonna depreciate in value. All right. And we can talk about that later on in another video about good debt and bad debt, but don't get caught up in the debt trap. Remember, I told you, do not need to borrow. You do not need to borrow for your first car. Let's unlearn that. Let's start off, with what we can afford, and luxuries come later. So let's normalize that as young people. And I know that, social media paints a different picture, but remember that social media is not always the true picture. And so I would say to my younger self to stay grounded in, being sensible because aesthetics has us, some of us, our reality completely distorted, and I don't want that for my young people. All right. And so I talked about preparing for hard times always. Like my grandmother used to say, hard times are coming. So no matter how good life gets, always plan ahead. Always, always, always plan ahead and learn to save. Say have 50 to 60% of your income for your living expenses, 20% for savings and investments, and then 20 to 30% to enjoy yourself. And anybody who knows me, this is a channel about intentional and abundant living. So I'm always going to tell you to find time for joy, find time for enjoyment. But I'm also going to tell you to be responsible and to understand that you have to build the habit, right? You have to build the habits first in order to enjoy a life of intentionality and abundance later on. So money expands your options, but only if you manage it with discipline, intention, and foresight. So I would say to my younger self, get good with money. Get good with money. And number 4, time and priorities. Time is your greatest asset. Don't waste it. Do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. And I know when you're young, you think you have all the time in the world, and technically you do, right? My grandmother also used to say, make page of your age. What does that mean? It means that if you do the things that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, then you would have, I wouldn't say that you wouldn't have any regrets, but you would be contented to know that you're not living a life of regret, that you did what you were supposed to do when you were supposed to do it. All right. So make every year of your life count. So you don't need more time. You just need more intention. So in that same vein, if you're a young person and you want to do the partying, party responsibly. All right. So when you're 50, 60 years old, you're not trying to recreate what you did not do, in your youth. You would have been there, done that. I know we talk about, when we talk about intentional and abundant living also comes to being realistic, and I'm not the person that's going to tell you, oh, go and be settled at 20. No, go and enjoy yourself. You have the body, you have the skin, the world is your oyster, and time is on your side. Go, enjoy yourself, be youthful, have fun. Just remember that it's a part of your life's journey. Make page of your age. So if you want to party like a rock star, responsibly, go ahead and do it. It's your time. All right. Time is your greatest asset. And then there's also number 5. I would tell my younger self as it relates to relationships. Young lady, be very careful with who you connect yourself to. All right. And this is not just romantically, it's even with friendships. I have known persons that destroy their lives with the wrong friendships and associations. All right. So be very careful who you associate yourself with. Okay. A lot of people have ruined their life just because of affiliations. All right. And as it relates to romantic relationships, some people are extractors. They will drain the life out of you. All right. And if you are a woman who has it together, some people will also try to, how do I say? Some people will try to ruin you, especially if you are an attractive, beautiful, young woman, and most young women are. You have everything going for you. You have the personality, you have the hair, you have the skin, you have the time. Everything is on your side when you are young. Every single thing. The world is literally yours. And you have people, men, that see you and they will prey on you. And I want to say this again, young women, because I know sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times, most times, we are, we're looking for the Prince Charming, right? And we're looking for the man that is going to come into our lives and, do right by us. Most, not all, I can't say all, most young women have that hope. And so you're going to find that you're going to have a lot of older men, that would try to come, into your realm, and they're going to come with all the bells and the whistles. And you're going to have to use such discernment to be able to decipher between what is good and what is not good for you. And it's a very, very tricky thing. It's one of the hardest decisions you would have to make as a young woman. There will be men that will prey on you. Follow me, flow with me, because you are young. They will want to extract from you. Extract, everything that the feminine has to offer. And because your frontal lobe is not developed as yet, you think it's love. You think it's all good intentions. And in most cases, my darling, my queens, it doesn't work out. Sometimes you end up getting trapped in the cycle of, having the baby because, he would have promised to take care of you. And sometimes they start off extremely well. And I am talking from things that I have seen, patterns that I have seen over and over and over again. I have known grown men that would come to the school where young women are, and this is normalized for us growing up, and try to lock down young girls, so by the time they're out of school, they're already connected to a man. I think they call it grooming, right? And so by the time as you come out into the world, you didn't even have an opportunity to know what you wanted out of life because you already attached to a big old grown man that is 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, your senior, who would have already lived life and wants to extract from you and distract you. So you look up after 10 years and you're replaced, all right? You are replaced and you have nothing to show except for some children that he may not even look at after you guys are no longer together and he has discarded you. It's not easy, I know, as a young woman growing up, because it's hard for you to decipher between love and just being prey and people pretending or putting on just to get, comfortable enough to get into your realm and destroy you ultimately. And so you have to be very, very careful as a young woman when you're coming up in the world to stay the course, stay focused. I'm not saying don't look to the left or to the right of you in terms of having romantic relationships. You're young. Like I said earlier, you have the world as your oyster, but you're going to have to stay rooted and grounded in the things, all things, boundaries. What the young people are saying now, run a strict program, whereas if something doesn't align with what you want, time is your asset. Youth is on your side. Get rid of it expeditiously. Don't get locked into a fantasy because it doesn't change. I have seen women ruin their lives because they would have connected themselves very, very early on to men that did not have their best interests at heart. And I want to hold your hand when I say this. Do not think that you're special. If he did it before, he can easily do it again. If he has a bunch of children by different women, you're not special. Okay? Just because you're young, fresh, and green, you're young, fresh, and green now, it does not mean that you will be like that forever. Okay? If you're a young woman, you are in school, you would have took biology, so you understand clearly that the human life is what? A cycle. It goes through stages: child, adolescent, adult. And then when the life cycle completes, that's the end of you. And then, and then it keeps evolving. So don't trick yourself to thinking that, I'm this, I'm that, I'm young, and I'm this and I'm that. Be very careful who you tie yourself with as a young woman. Make sure that your needs are being met, that your boundaries are being upheld, that you don't lose yourself. And always make sure that that person that is in your life makes sense in your life. Because we have this, I've seen, a pattern where women are tied to a romantic partner, but there's no benefit for the woman. There's no benefit for the woman. And you need to make that assessment early on, as a young woman. You need to make sure that you are not just going in a repeated cycle, right? Especially if you saw mommy do it, Grammy did it. Grammy was a teenage mom. Mommy was a teenage mom. It doesn't mean that you also have to be a teenage mom. Mommy was abused, and so you don't have to be abused. You can break patterns and cycles at any given time. And so all of this is a part of becoming a young woman, coming into your own. And it starts from, that 17, 18, when you're getting ready to come out into the world, when you're preparing for your coming out, okay? So I would say to you, don't rush to commit your life. I know it sounds good when, guys are selling you candy in your ear. I want you to have my baby. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that for you. Education first. High value skills first. Babies are going to always be there. Trust me. I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. Babies are going to always be there. Your womb is not going anywhere. You're going to be just fine. Don't rush to have any children. Don't rush to commit your life to anything that is centered around a man. All right? Find yourself first, because what you want now may not be what you want later. Not everyone deserves access to you. You're a young woman. You're coming into your own. I know everyone is running after you, and it's hard. You're beautiful. Everybody wants you, but what do they want you for? I need you to think, young women. And I know when you're young, you are flattered by the overwhelming attention. And not all attention is good attention. Some people want to experience you, but